Welcome back to the Aviation Insurance Podcast, and today we'll be talking on a very brief level about one of the fundamental coverages in aircraft insurance, and that is aircraft physical damage coverage, right? This is one of those things people most often think about when they talk about insurance for aircraft, right? When something physically happens to the aircraft, when metal gets bent or composite material gets damaged, we have a physical damage loss. So a definition of physical damage coverage would be to provide coverage for direct loss to an aircraft that is sudden and accidental in nature or due to repeated exposure over time. So an occurrence has to happen in order for physical damage to respond. What it does not respond to are indirect losses like loss of value, loss of use, and other indirect losses that are a result of that physical damage loss. This is for your own first-party aircraft insurance policy. It also, for you turbine operators, does not cover hot starts. Aircraft physical damage coverage is not a warranty or a mechanical insurance coverage. It has to be a sudden accidental loss or repeated exposure over time due to an outside force, not mechanical, warranty, or issues. So it is occurrence-based, and it will pay up to the limit of insurance, what we call the insured value. Now, aircraft are written a little bit differently than your home or auto. Most of your homes are written on some form of a replacement cost value basis, meaning that if fire or a tornado were to damage your home, it would pay the amount to replace your house if you replaced it in general. And then when it comes to our automobiles, in general, they pay the actual cash value. So the value of the vehicle minus the depreciation, or in simpler words, what it's worth today. If your car is worth $10,000 today, that's what the limit of liability is. But in aircraft insurance, a little bit different. It's an agreed amount or a stated value basis. So whatever is agreed upon by the person buying the policy, the insured, and the insurance company, they will agree on that insured value before the policy goes to effect. That amount is stated in the policy as the amount of coverage. And if there's a total loss, that amount stated in the policy is the amount that will be on the check. Now, if an aircraft has a loss that's not a total loss, they're going to pay obviously up to that unless the salvage or the repair bid and the salvage bid that they get is more or very close to the insured amount. In that case, the insurance company may elect just to do a total loss, even in the event of a partial loss. And that's why selecting the correct value is so important. We'll get into that on another episode, but do not insure your aircraft just for what you owe on it. You've got to insure it for just about what you want or need, to replace it with something of like kind and quality, even if you weren't planning to replace it. So direct physical loss, and it can be written several ways. Two keys are not in motion. So you just want protection while it's in the hangar. So direct flight in motion or not in motion. In motion means under its own propulsion. And you have to read that carefully. Usually it means the engine's spooling, it's under its own propulsion. So read your definition carefully. Not in motion. There is one other, not in flight, you'll see occasionally that some carriers use to stipulate it's covered while on the ground, basically. When you get into helicopters, it's a little bit different terminology. Rotors not in motion, rotors in motion, or rotors not in motion excluding hover. There may be a few specific ways that you may see that written, but understanding whether it's covered in flight, not in flight, and the insured value is very key. You will also likely have a deductible. Not everybody. Some aircraft do have zero deductible, but often you may have a minimal deductible that will apply in the event of a loss. You will owe that amount to go towards the loss. So be sure to read your policy and see what the deductible is. So to recap very quickly, this is very high level, very high altitude view of physical damage coverage. It's direct physical loss, which is triggered by an occurrence, which is a sudden and accidental event or a repeated event over time, repeated exposure that results in a loss, and also obviously has to be covered under the terms of the policy. We'll get into that into another episode as well. Remember to determine whether you're purchasing the aircraft in flight, not in flight, or not in motion. That's very important. So anyway, that's all I'm going to go into for this short episode. We want to keep these brief, concise, and to the point. We will continue to cover these topics and related topics in more detail as we continue to go through this podcast. So
thanks for listening to the Aviation Insurance Podcast. If you found this episode of value, please share it with someone who would benefit from this information. Don't forget to subscribe in your podcast player so you don't miss any new episodes, and to help our show have more impact. This episode is brought to you by Aeris Insurance Solutions, your flight plan for navigating the turbulence of aviation insurance. For more information, visit aerisinsurance.com. That is www.aerisinsurance.com. Disclaimer: these episodes are for educational purposes only, and due to the changing regulatory and legal nature of the business, some information may change over time. Having a well-educated and experienced aviation insurance broker on your team is an absolute requirement to success in business and for managing your aircraft and aviation business risks.